Shalom, here we are. Let's do Psalm 8. Okay? And we'll do both the peshat meaning, and we'll also look at some of the Ugaritic stuff to see, if there might be some things the Masoretes overlooked. Verse Aleph. Lamnatzech al hagitit. For the conductor, al upon hagitit. Nobody knows what a hagitit is. If your translation is very certain about it and they don't footnote it, they are lying to you. I rarely say this about translations, but they're at least covering up the uncertainty. Some suggest, I think maybe the strongest suggestion is that this is a musical instrument that was famous from Gath, right? Gath, where Goliath was from, right? So from Gath, so over in Gaza, so-called Gaza, right? So maybe upon this kind of instrument, Mizmor LeDavid, a psalm of David. Verse 2. So here's the bait. Verse 2. Adonai Adonenu ma adir shimkha. O Adonai, Adonenu, our lords. Ma adir, how adir, excellent, is, we have to insert the is in English, shimkha. This is cha, meaning your shame, your name, your reputation, who you are, your authority, right? It could be hinting about any of those things there. Bechol ha'aretz, in all of the earth, right? So erets can mean land or earth. Here the context is pretty clear. We're talking about the earth. Asher tena hodecha. So here we have asher before the verb tena from natan. So when you have asher in front of the verb, or you have some other noun in front of the verb, often, less so in poetry, and this is poetry, but kind of the usual way we attack that is this is what we would call the instrumental case. If you're dealing with a language like Russian, or in Greek, they would call it the accusative of means, right? It's meaning the thing by which the verb is doing its thing, right? So if I hit an anti-Semite with a baseball bat, okay, hit is the verb, baseball bat is the accusative of means, or the instrumental thing, right? So biblical Hebrew would say something like, they wouldn't need the word with. It could just say, baseball bat, I hit. You see? So it's meaning, but that's helping the verb to do its thing, okay? So that's what I'm kind of suggesting. By the way, I'm just being silly. I'm not telling people to go beat up anti-Semites or something. God will deal with them, okay? So, all right. Asharatna hodecha, your splendor. And then we have al, over, or it can mean from, hashemayim, the sky, the heavens, the cosmos. Now we'll go a bit deeper. Okay, this is kind of an accepted way to translate it because we are accepting the vowels and the ta'amim, the sense signs that the Masoretes put in the text. A little over, they started doing this 1,300 years ago, like this, okay? But only what has survived is from 1,000 years, okay? So the problem is there is a form of the verb called the modus energicus, or the energetic form, which has been pretty well proven by scholars. Modern scholarship existed in various places in the Bible, and we can see that the Masoretes did not know about this form. It was lost to them by the time of 1,000 years ago, or 1,300 years ago, like this. And so what this means is we need to consider when we could have one of those forms, and it's usually going to be in older literature. Here we are in Tehillim. This is the older biblical Hebrew stuff. We're not talking Torah Hebrew here. This is usually older, more archaic, hence more difficult. And look, you don't feel bad if you have trouble, because even the Masoretes, they didn't get this. And I think Mitchell Dahood makes a great point that in this particular case, I'm sorry, of these guys here, this is one word, probably was one word. Asher was not asher at all. This was probably the energetic form, asharatna. So one verb, asharatna. Making this verb not tena, to give, but actually the verb being shin, resh, and tav. Sheret. Sheret. So what does sheret mean? Sheret is to serve, to minister, right? More often to minister, like that. Like David ministered to Shaul, King Saul, and to adore, right? So this is an energetic form. What does that mean? Well, the form has expanded. It's more wordy, kind of like a ballast example. We do this sometimes with bait. Like here we've got, I can't quite reach there, but see at the beginning of the verse we have bait. So bait sometimes expands into a ballast form, like a stronger form, bemo, Usually in poetry, it's an older form, right? And also the Canaanites had this form. So we'll see bemo, kaf becomes kemo, lamed becomes lemo, okay, right? And so you'll see these forms usually used in poetry to give you another syllable. Right? That's why it's there, because instead of just be, they wanted bemo. They needed two syllables. So they'll use bemo, right? Okay. So something similar here, though, and sometimes it's for the case of making the point stronger. In you, in him, bemo. Or there is ein kemo. There's none like him. So it can actually have an emphatic meaning. That's what's happening with this, if this is indeed an energetic form here, okay? So if it is asharatna, one verb, asharatna, then it's I adore. Like I so much adore. What do I adore? Hodecha, your splendor. Hod is one of these words where it can mean, we usually see it with hod v'hadar, glory and splendor, right? Glory and honor, something like that. Al hashemayim, in the heavens. So I think probably the psalmist, he knows God exists, and he looks up in the sky in the time before light pollution, in the desert perhaps, in Judah, and he sees from the Negev, or maybe even from Yerushalayim, he sees the splendor. If you're a city slicker and you've never been out into the wild and looked up and gotten to see the stars, you are missing something. You've seen maybe a third of what there is to see. It's just magnificent. And so you can almost stand there with the psalmist thinking, asharatna, hodecha, al hashemayim, right? From the heavens. Heavens meaning the cosmos, the seen cosmos. Okay? Now we're on verse Gimel. So you see over on the right side, over there, beep, beep, on the far side, there's a Gimel. That's verse 3. Oh, and actually, it's possible, the way that the rhyme and rhythm works, that these next three words, this one, and the one on the next line, might have belonged to this current verse. So we'll go ahead and read it that way. I adore your splendor from the heavens, mipi olalim, from the mouth of babes, v'yonakim, and from sucklings. Stop. Now we have our next verse. Again, assuming that the asharatna doesn't mess up the meter, right? It messes up the meter if you do it right, so that's why the Masoretes would have ended the verse in the wrong place. Okay, verse Dalet. But Dalet we're going to start here with Oz. Pardon me, with Yasadta. Yasadta Oz. You established, so this Yasad, many of you probably know Yesod, you've done the Ha-Yesod series, or, Mossad is from this root. Yasad is to establish, to make a foundation, etc. So you have established Oz. Now, Oz by itself is just like ooze, strength, right? Strength. But as I've been trying to make clear to many of my Hebrew students, we have to be careful because in the Tanakh, the words are highly nuanced, and you usually don't get more nuancing than you do in poetry, right? So the idea is, here we've got a king, he's defeated his foes, and then his subject is singing him accolades. Ma'adir, how excellent. This is like royal language. How adir, right, is shimkha b'chol ha'aretz, right? All right? And the subject does happen to adore the king, so we get that. So now what happens after a sovereign destroys the enemies? What does he do? He builds a fortress so that nobody else can come in. So yisad ta'oz, so probably fortress, stronghold, something like this is going to be good for this word oz here. Lema'an tzorecha, okay? So lema'an is like because of tzorecha, or for your tzorers, for your adversaries. So it makes sense. You built a fortress, right? Now, there's another way to read this. We could read lemaon, for an abode, and then the against is kind of implied against tzorecha. So that's one of the things that could work there. We can also understand the lemaon, a habitation. So that the oz, the fortress, might actually be more related back to shemayim, back to the heavens, right? Okay. And then we would stop. So we wouldn't. I'm sorry. As I was going along, I was looking at the etnachta there, the way the Masoretes put their pointing, and I'm following that. In Psalms, sometimes we need to abandon that, right? If we're trying to really get back to the original meaning. Okay. So now we start. Tzorecha, your adversaries, your tzorels, Let me make myself smaller here. Lehashbit, you have stopped, you have silenced. Oyev, the enemy. Again, there's no the here in the Psalms, but that's just how we do it. It's poetry. Umitnakem, and the Avenger. Interesting. No, this is not a DC comic. What I know. Are Avengers Marvel or DC? I'm so tired of superhero movies. Okay. Dalet, number 4, verse 4. Ki. Ereh. Okay, maybe I'm going to move this up a bit. Let's move up. And we can try looking over like this. Nope, that's not going to work. Okay. Ki. Ereh. 4. Ereh. I see. And there's a hey at the end. It's like, because of the key, rather, it feels emphatic, right? Like, I think this is probably an emphatic key going on there. It might not be, but I think it might be. So, ki ereh for I see, or maybe when I see. Again, you might think, wait, why aren't you just picking one way to translate and blah, blah, blah? Well, this is this is how it goes, man. This is Hebrew poetry. Ancient Hebrew poetry. So, I want to show you the different possibilities, and then maybe you can see how the Ruach leads you to interpret this. Okay. When I see shamecha, your shamayim, that's your heavens, right? So again, back to this theme. He's outside at night. He's looking up at the vastness of space, right? And it's amazing how perfectly placed the Earth is for celestial observation, right? We're in the Milky Way. And I think I learned this from the Discovery Institute a long time ago. I'm not sure. It might be somebody else. There's so many places in the Milky Way where our solar system could have ended up. And if it had been, the light pollution from all the clusters of stars nearby would have made it very difficult to look out into deep space to discover other galaxies, etc. But we're placed in a place where it's actually kind of thin in the light pollution, so we can see. And just as the psalmist at the time when he was writing, there's no modern lights and stuff, and he's able to look up and see. So, ki ereh shamecha, when I look at your cosmos, maybe there, ma'aseh etzboatecha, the work of your forefinger, yareach, the moon, the kokhavim. Usually we translate stars, but you need to know this word doesn't just mean stars. It means any luminary in the sky at night, okay? Any luminary is a kokhav, right? Even Mars, the word for Mars has the word kokhav in the name. So just so you know, this is planets too. Asher konananta, which you have formed. And this is Avraham Avinu. He refers to God as konein shemayim va'aretz, the former, the maker of the heaven and the earth. Continuing with verse 5. Ma enosh ki tizkarenu. What is man? Ki that tizkarenu, that you remember him. But this is not remember like we mean remember. This means that you act on his behalf. When God is a subject, it's not remembering because he doesn't forget. He doesn't forget. So enosh is kind of a poetic way to say man. We find this in Jewish Aramaic, this word, enosh. Like bar enosh, the son of man, in Daniel, that's also an imperial Aramaic. Enosh is man, right? So these are synonyms, Adam and Enosh, but it's very poetic the way he did it, right? Uven Adam, literally, or the son of man, and this also means human being, by the way. That's how you say human being in Hebrew, Ben Adam. Ki, that, tifkedenu. And so this actually nails down what I'm claiming about zakar, meaning to act upon, right? To act upon. If you remember when God remembers Sarah, we're told he remembered Sarah, and he visited her, and she got pregnant, right? Okay. So he remembered, i.e., he decides to take action. So what is man that you decide to take action on him, right? That you interact with him. Uven Adam, or son of man, ki tifkedeno, that you visit him. Nice, right? And on this line that we just read about what is man, that you remember him, or the son of man, that you visit him, the Talmud in Sanhedrin, Tractate Sanhedrin, 4, section 5, okay, this is one way that's broken up. It says that Rabbi Judah said to Rav, when the Holy One, blessed be he, created a group of ministering angels, when he proposed to create man, he created a group of ministering angels. And he said to them, by the way, this actually adds some support to the asharatna too, right? Having the word ministering there. Shall we make man in our image? They said to him, Lord of ages, what sort of things will he do? He said to them, these are the sorts of things he will do. They said before him, Lord of ages, what is man that you're mindful of him, and the son of man that you think of him? So the Talmud here is expanding on the idea that this is, by the way, this is Neusner's translation, that, so they're expanding on the idea, on his Talmudic commentary, volume 16, page 657. It's actually quoting the angel, so that's kind of nice. All right, let's continue on. Verse, okay, here we are. Verse 6. Vatechasarehu. Okay, so chasar. What's happening with the chasar there? Vatechasarehu. So chasar, this word, it can mean a few different things. And here it's like, you might remember the psalm that says, Psalm 23, Adonai ro'i lo echsa, the Lord is my shepherd, I will not lack. I won't be lacking something, right? So, v'tachasrehu here then is, and you have made him lack, meaning you've made him in such a way that he's just, well, you'll see, me'at, a little bit, okay, a little bit what? A little bit lacking me Elohim. Now, I've been talking to a lot of you, I've been talking to you guys for a while about Elohim, meaning not just God or gods, right? That's why, Yisrael doesn't really mean wrestle with God, but it's really something more like wrestles with the divine, right? Or wrestles with angels even, right? Because that's, our ancestor wrestled with the angel and then he got called wrestles with angel, right? Like, it's kind of interesting, like, dances with wolves. He wrestles with angels. That's the name. Why would it be wrestles with God? He didn't wrestle with God. That wasn't God, okay? And I'm actually, even though some Jews repeat this, I'm actually against this idea of saying that Israel means wrestles with God because, well, it sounds a little anti-Semitic, like all those Jews are always wrestling with God. Better, I think, to say wrestles with the divine, which is what we're doing right now. We're wrestling with the divine text, right? We're wrestling with the scriptures. That is what it is to be Yisrael. All right. Continuing on. So, v'tachasrehu, maybe I should put my pointer here. V'tachasrehu me'at, you made him lacking a little bit. Mi Elohim, from angels, from divine beings. Right? Which, of course, is why the Nachash later is jealous of us. Right? He knew that we will one day rule over Elohim. Not El Elyon, not the Most High, not the one who's God, the only one who's God, but over the angelic beings, the other divine beings. The throne guardians, all that stuff will be higher than them. The chavod v'hadar, and glory and honor. Strength and honor. Glory and honor to atarehu. Okay, again, I had to look at the verb before I got this. Remember I mentioned that accusative of means, or the instrumental case, like in Slavic languages, the accusative means like in Greek and Latin and other classical languages. This is the means by which this verb is going to act, right? Remember? Hit the anti-Semite with a baseball bat. Okay, so baseball bat, hit, okay? Baseball bat, I hit. It means with it, right? It implies with it. Same thing here. So, chavod v'hadar, this is kind of Hendai. This means absolute splendor, absolute glory, right? Maybe not absolute, but with total glory. So kavod is literally honor, right? Sometimes glory. Hadar is splendor, right? So with these things, with glory and honor, to atarehu, you have crowned him, right? And atera, there's a noun that comes from this. It's a diadem, right? Like one of those little tiny crowns, So it has the idea of going in a circle or wrapping. So you could even interpret you've wrapped him, meaning Ben Adam, the son of man. Okay. And by the way, thinking about it, having Enosh here and having Ben Adam, it makes me want to combine them to be Bar Enosh, right? So you could actually be talking about Mashiach even, right? There could be some hints here about Mashiach. Okay, verse Sheva. V'tam shilehu b'maaseh yadecha. Okay. Mashal is, oh, actually it's idiomatic, mashal be, right? Means to rule. So you don't say rule in, the be is part of the verb. It just follows this verb, okay? So, but this is a he-fill form. You see the yod? Again, if you don't know this, it's okay. When you have a three-letter root letter of a word, of a verb, and there's a yod jammed in there before the third letter. So you've got mem, sheen, and then we're going to jam in the yod, boom, yod, and then lamed. That is a causative form. So if mashal is to rule, then putting that yod in there means to cause to rule, right? So tam shile hu, you have caused who, him, to rule. What is he ruling? We don't translate the bait, that's part of it. Ma'aseh yadecha, your handiwork. Literally, the work of yad. Yad is hand, cha is your. And the yod tells us it's plural there. Okay? Kol shata tachat raglav. Kol, everything. Shata, you have placed. Tachat, underneath. Raglav, his feet. This is about kingly subjects. The king's feet are on their neck. The king's feet is over there. The earth is the Lord's footstool, right? All about what's at your foot is what you're ruling over, okay? Although, I'll just mention, this is not it here, but there are a few cases where the Talmud teaches us that when you see in the Tanakh, regel, like foot, sometimes, very rarely, but if you ever are coming across a place and it doesn't make sense the way it's got regel there, not here it makes full sense, okay? But if it doesn't make sense, then try inserting genitalia instead. Sometimes the Bible distances itself from the word for genitalia by using foot as a euphemism, okay? But again, just not here. Just so you know, you don't have to remember, but just so you know, that happens, okay? Tsone alafim. So tsone, flocks, va'alafim, and, or maybe the idea of flocks, like of sheep, goats, etc. Va'alafim, and an elef is it's a bovid, right? So cattle. And by the way, tsone without the aleph, this is some scholars claim that this is like a small group of cattle. So it could be a small group of cattle and a big group of cattle, like forming a merism, meaning all kinds of bovids, maybe. So we'll just go with the first one. The sheep is kind of more intuitive. Kulam, all together. Vegam, and also bahamot. So these are bahamot, these are beasts, right? Specifically beasts that can't talk. that's where it comes from. Instead of talking, they just go hum, hum, hum. That's how that word formed. Of sadai, of the field. Okay, this is a kind of a by representation, a bygone, a byword rather. Bygone. I'm a little tired. A bygone, again, wrong word. A byword. Byword is when we spell it a different way, right? So sadai of sadeh, you might have known it as sadeh, seen, dalet, hey, the field. Okay, let's push this up a bit. Okay, maybe we're almost finished with this beautiful psalm. Tzipor is bird. Like you remember Moshe's wife, Tzipporah? It means like a little bird, right? So Tzipor is a bird. Bird, Shemayim, of the sky. Udigei hayam, and dog. So in Hebrew, a dog is a fish. Woof, woof. It's a fish dog, or dogfish. And then dagim means fish. Fishes, if we said it that way. And then remember, when you lose the mem at the end of a word in the plural, that means of. So degei are fishes of hayam, the sea. Over, who cross over. Can I reach there? All right, I'll put my stylus down here. Orchot yamim. So an orach is a way, right? This is a very, very flexible word. We use a version of this word to mean the caravan of the Ishmaelites who came down and they bought Yosef HaTzadik to sell him into Egypt, right? That's an orachim. That's a caravan, right? It's people who are on the orach, or on the road, right? Not the usual word. Derech is much more common, but orach means the same thing. Orach yamim, though, even though this says orchot yamim, I believe the poet said orchot yamim to remind us of lengthy days, that God will give us lengthy days, right? All right. So orchot yamim, in this case, context is king. We're talking about fish, right? So these are going to be the waves, right? The fish who cross over the orchot yamim, the waves of the ocean, right? The paths, what would be the paths of the ocean? I mean, I guess in a modern context, you could say sea lanes, but the psalm wasn't written with modern in mind. So this is the waves of the sea. right? And we have a word for waves, galot. But I think if you use galot here, right, like gal galot, like gal gadot, I mean, gal, her name means wave, like not wave, but like a sea wave, right, like that. Oh, kind of hippie sounding, but anyway, if you use that, then it wouldn't bring to memory the idea of orach yamim, lengthy days, right? Or like in the Ten Commandments when it says, kibed et avicha v'et imecha, honor your father and your mother, lema'an, so that ya'arichun yamecha al ha'adama asher nishba Adonai Elohecha lachem. So that he will lengthen, ya'arichun, hear it, arich, it's from, right? It sounds similar to this, even though it's a different word. It's a kaf instead of a chet, but again, a lot of times there'll be this kind of play on words, right? So ya'arichun, that might be lengthened, and in that case it's yamecha, your yams, not your seas. Here yamim means sea, but in that case yamim means it's from your days. So I could be wrong, but I think the psalmist is kind of going for that connection there. And it just came to me now, so maybe I'm wrong. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think, if I'm crazy on that or if it makes sense. And let's finish up. We are now on verse Tav. Where are we? Yod, Tav. And we have a beautiful inclusio. We end the psalm the way that we started it. And it says, Adonai Adonenu, O Lord, O Adonai, our Lords, Adonenu, our Lords, Ma, how, and by the way, you see the little yod there, that's how you know it's Lords and not just Lord, right? Ma, how, Adir, how excellent is, we have to say in English, is shimkha, your name, your shame, your reputation, your fame, your power, the whole ha'aretz, in all of the earth. And now I'll just read it through one time. You could be done for those of you who want to be done, but I'll just read it through one time for those who want to just kind of enjoy the feeling of the psalm. And maybe I'll turn off my camera so we can just get through it without blocking it any there. Just follow the stylus. It will get a bit bigger so it's easier to read for any of you on cell phones who are having trouble. Not sure if that was smart or not, but here we go. I'm just going to read right now, no translation, just so you can feel it. Lamatzech al hagitit mizmor David. Adonai Adonenu ma'adir shimkha. Bechol ha'aretz asher tena hodecha, or asharatna hodecha. Al shamayim. Mipi olelim v'yonikim. Yisata oz lema'an socharecha lehashpit. or lemaon. Oyev umitnaken. Ki ereh shamecha maaseh etzboatecha. Yareach v'kokhavim asher konanta. Ma enosh ki tizkarenu. Uven adam ki tifkedenu. V'techasrehu me'at mei Elohim. V'chavod v'hadar te'atrehu. Tamshilehu b'maaseh yadecha. Kol shata tachat raglaiv. Tsonei v'alafim kulam. V'gam bahamot sadai. Tzipor shemayim udegei hayam. Over ochot yamim. Adonai Adonenu ma adir shimkha bechol haaretz. All right, guys, you have a great time. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please give a thumbs up and leave me some comments if you had some ideas or if you learned something new here. I'd like to see that, to appreciate that. We're still working out how we're going to do these Psalms. Is it too long? Am I blah-blahing too much? Do you want just more of the material? Let me know. Would you like to hear more, like Talmudic insights and sorts of things like this on Tehillim? Let me know. Leave your comment down below. Shalom, shalom.